What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with an age-old question, one that I get asked a lot, one that I chew on a lot, and we are going to finally go through and figure out which players are the best and worst at no-cut events versus regular tour events. With the CJ Cup this week, a no-cut event where your golfers outside of a withdrawal or a disqualification are guaranteed 4 rounds. So it really just gave me an opportunity to dig into the data and come away with hopefully some useful information. So before we do that, I do use tools from my website to pull this information, and I'm very proud of those tools. It's dfsondemand.com. If you would like to win a weekly subscription, if you want to enter a draw to win a weekly subscription, there are 2 ways to do that. Make sure you like this video, you're subscribed to the channel, comment below which no-cut tournament is your favorite. So it could be the Tournament of Champions, one of the playoff events. It could be the CJ Cup for all I know. Let me know which is your favorite tournament and why. And then if you are on the audio version of this, the podcast, especially on iTunes, leave a 5-star review, say something nice about the show, and leave me your Twitter handle so I can get in touch with you. That's the easiest way to win because like 1/20th of the people do it that way. So that's about it. 2 ways to get you into a draw. You can use the tools, which is where I pulled this data from for this video. All right, let's turn our attention to this no cut versus regular cut situation. I want to lay out a few simple guidelines for what I've done here and what we're going to look at. The narrative and the thought process around the no-cut events, golfers get 4 rounds. You want birdie makers, you want the studs, guys like Justin Thomas, guys like Hideki Matsuyama, Xander Schauffele. For whatever reason, they show up in no-cut events and are always in contention. So what I want to do is kind of take away that narrative. I'm not going to argue with you why. If you want to debate it, I'll come on your podcast, whatever. We'll actually debate it. Why someone could play better in these type of events. It could be a mentality thing, knowing that you don't have a cut to worry about and you're going to be there. It's kind of a slower burn. You don't have to be so exact and great right out of the gate. But it could be a lot of things, right? I mean, some guys take a little bit to just ease into the tournament, and maybe you're better suited for that type of situation. So for whatever reason, again, not going to debate that. We're just going to look strictly at the data here. And what I've done is I've gone back for the last 5 years, and I have pulled all the data that I have accessible. So if it has like the strokes gained data, if it was in my database, I pulled it out for the no-cut events, which the list of no-cut events is... I have it right here. Stand by. BMW Championship, CIMB Classic, Hero World Challenge, Hyundai Tournament of Champions, which is Century Tournament of Champions, SBS Tournament of Champions, that event at the start, CJ Cup Tour Championship, and then all the WGCs. So that would be different name changes over the years, HSBC Champions, Bridgestone, Cadillac, FedEx St. Jude, Mexico, et cetera, okay? So that's what we're using here, last 5 years, and you had to have a minimum of 5 no-cut events. Additionally, I separated out the cut events and the no-cut events. For whatever reason, I have seen something similar to this, maybe posted on Twitter, where all they did was use no-cut events versus average, which the average would also include the no-cut events. So I actually separated them both out. So it's all of the no-cut events in one pile and all of the regular tour cut events in another pile. So that's what I've done. I will now show you the results, and we can talk through some of the most interesting things here. So if you're watching on the video version, I'm showing it right now. If you're listening, I'll do my best to describe it. And I have... I have 72 golfers that over the last 5 years have played at least 5 no-cut events, and I have them sorted currently by just column H here, which I'm calling no-cut studs, which are the guys that have the biggest difference in strokes gained total from their no-cut average to their regular tour event average. Now, with that being said, just because you have the biggest difference doesn't mean you are necessarily the best player. For example, Patton Kizzire is gaining 0.18 strokes per round. These are all per round numbers in no-cut events, which is the third highest difference because his average tour event strokes gained is negative 0.31. So like, just because you have a big gap does not necessarily mean you're like the no-brainer stud to play in a no-cut event. So if you're not watching on the video, the top guys on this list are Kiradat, Afi Barnrat, number one. He is almost 9/10 of a stroke better in no-cut events. He's only played 5 of them than his regular tour events, which he is almost a very neutral player. So he has 5 no-cut events, and he has 24 PGA Tour events that I have data on. Will McGirt is number 2. Again, 5 no-cut events, so he just makes the criteria that we need here. And 53 PGA Tour events. He's about a half a stroke better per round in those no-cut events. So this is one way to look at it. So the next couple guys are, so it's Afi Barnrat, Will McGirt, Patton Kizzire, Charles Schwartzel, Xander Schauffele, who you absolutely expected to show up here. Xander averages 1.07 strokes gained in the no-cut events and 0.8 in the regular events. It's about 0.2 of a stroke better per round. So that's one way to look at it, but I want to do this a couple different ways because I think we want to know who like the big name players are. So I'm just going to sort this first off by the number of no-cut events that you have here. So we'll get those like, small sample sizes out of here. And Justin Thomas, so there's 3 guys that have played 18 no-cut events in the last 5 years that I have data on. That's still the caveat here. Justin Thomas and DJ and Patrick Reed, those 3 guys. Justin Thomas and DJ are actually averaging exactly the same strokes gained total per round in those 18 events. Both of them are 1.57. That's right on average for Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas is a 1.54 player normally. He's 1.57 in the no-cut events. Basically no difference. Dustin Johnson, who, when I tweeted this out, so I kind of teased this a little bit on Twitter, like, oh, hey, I've got this data, I'll be making a video, blah, blah, blah. And you should see the names that everyone threw out, right? Hideki's name popped up a lot. Hideki is a 0.8 player in no-cut events and actually way better in cut events, 1.4 in the regular cut events. So he's a negative almost 0.6 of a stroke per round. It's one of the worst numbers. Now, that is, again, not a knock on Hideki because he's still so good in regular tour events. He's still so good in no-cut events, but like, he's still a negative player technically. Dustin Johnson was another name that came up a lot. DJ, again, just he is, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the opposite of benefits? I don't know. He doesn't benefit from the fact that his regular tour average is so elite, 2.05 strokes per round. That's insane. So when you look at it and say, oh my God, his average no cut round is 1.57, that is so crazy. And then you look at his regular one and it's even crazier. Like, so DJ gets a knock here, but it's not because of a lack of, he's not faltering in no-cut events. It's just his regular average is so insane. So, and then Patrick Reed, he's a negative player in no-cut events, actually. One of the biggest differences, he's down about 1.53 strokes in no-cut events compared to his regular tour average. So what we really want to look at here is, I think the best way to look at this is probably through just the average, like the strokes gained average for the no-cut events, because Rory McIlroy is the number 1 guy here, pretty significantly. He's basically a quarter stroke better than Justin Thomas and DJ Johnson. I almost called him Dustin Johnson. He's a 1.73 player in no-cut events, and he's a 1.72 player in all other tour events. So both of those numbers are extremely crazy. So when you look and just try to say, okay, I'm going to load up in Rory in no-cut events, well, yeah, he's going to play great, but he hasn't shown to play better in one event or another. He's just absolutely awesome everywhere. So the top 5 here are Rory, JT, Dustin Johnson, Tommy Fleetwood, John Rahm. Then you get Tiger. So Tiger only has 5 no-cut events because of obviously all of the injury. This is probably pretty heavily reliant on his tour championship win 2 years ago, right? So he only has five rounds, but has been pretty good in no-cut events. So it's pretty interesting to see Xander's on this list. Paul Casey is on this list as well. And then I just like to kind of look and compare it against what their average tour is. So, Hatton's a little bit better than his tour average. Affy Barnrat in a very small sample, very much better. But a lot of these guys really, Webb Simpson's worse, Tony Finau's worse, Jason Day's worse. A lot of them are just really good all the time, quite frankly. So if we go down to the bottom of the list here, Kadira is just a negative player in no-cut events, and he's a negative player in general. Danny Willett, much more of a neutral player in general, loses about a stroke and a half per round in no-cut events. Again, small sample, so that can go the other way for him too. So I thought this was a really interesting way to look at this. What I'll do is I'll convert this to a Google document, and I will link it in the description so that you can kind of look at this yourself. And what I'll actually do is, if you really want, I'll remove this filter. So, I filtered it. I have everyone here in this spreadsheet. So I have 211 golfers who have played at least one no-cut event, and their averages here. I just put in the filter myself. So if you really want to see all the data, I'll include that. And then you can kind of click through and see for yourself a little bit. So there you go. I hope that was at least a little bit of the data insight on it. Again, I don't want to provide a narrative to why this is happening one way or another. If you want me to come on your podcast, if you want to debate it, or I'll have you on, whatever, let's do it. But this is strictly just on the data. So I hope you enjoyed that, and best of luck this week.